My name is Terri Louise Brown. I'm the founder and CEO of a registered charity called Talks with MS. We create safe spaces, we do in-person events, we do webinars, and we're just trying to ridicule the isolation that people with disabilities go through. We encourage healthy communication and togetherness because we're all about the community. I am 7 years into my multiple sclerosis diagnosis, and I want to say I'm balanced. But today we're going to tap in. Everybody's going to introduce themselves. But before we do, the term intersectionality was actually coined by Kimberly Williams Crenshaw in 1989. I had to Google that, but I thought, let's give a bit of a fact if I'm going to do this. So I'm going to hand over to Cristina. He's going to introduce herself.
So, hi everyone, I'm Cristina. I thought it was just my voice there for a minute. It is going. Hi, I'm Cristina, pronouns she, her. I'm going to describe myself because I'll forget to do it. So I am wearing a stripy top that is black, red, blue and white. Black trousers and my Jordans, because I love trainers. I've got blonde hair, which is most definitely out of a packet. And I'm actually chronic anemic, so I'm very pale for me. I'm from a mixed background. So, hi everyone. I'm the Lived Experience Ambassador in NHS England, where I'm all about co-production and co-design. But most importantly, I'm just Cristina.
Hi everyone, Warren Stapley, pronouns he, they. I'm 39 years old, and I think having just stepped out of my office to get here just in time for this panel, I think I could probably best be described as wearing a business casual today. I'm certainly being outdone by the rest of my panelists. Yes, it's a very interesting topic, I think, intersectionality for me. I think something as... Closer, my apologies. As a hearing impaired person, of course, I'm very cognizant of, in fact, when people can't hear exactly what's going on. I'm lifelong disabled, I'm classed as having a severe hearing impairment. I don't get very far in life without these trusty hearing aids and, in fact, lip reading. And I think actually it's going to be really great, I think, to exchange lived experiences and thoughts and perspectives on this. So thank you, and looking forward to it.
Hi everyone, I'm Sukhjeen, it's she, her. I'm a young South Asian woman. I'm wearing a burgundy top and black cargo pants and some rather heavy but very comfy boots. So I founded Chronically Brown, which is about tackling the stigma of disability in South Asian communities. And the reasoning behind that became from my own acquired disability I was diagnosed 5 years ago, and I was really struggling to get through to extended family members what that actually meant, the fact that it can't be cured, how it changed my life. And since then, I've started doing workshops, talks on intersectionality, and we also started a campaign Disabled, which is all about intersecting those two identities in together to try and create a more inclusive community within the South Asian community. And that's me in a nutshell.
Hi, I'm Jody. Ooh, I'm really loud as well. Sorry. So I was the one with the dog that was just interrupting. Sorry. He's now over there, so he may still bark. I have several disabilities. I have acquired ones, congenital ones, and genetic ones. I just like collecting a lot. I think I have black hair or whatever hair it is. I don't know, I'm blind. I'm wearing some sort of clothing, and I'd like to think I look good. I don't know. Probably not. It's a good thing I can see myself. I am an ex-police officer and I'm an author, and now I am training towards becoming a barrister. And I'm the vice chair of the Association of Disabled Lawyers and a member of Free Bar. So I come from all sorts of different backgrounds.
Thank you very much. It's me again. My name is Jordan Jarrett-Bryan. I'm a broadcaster and journalist. I am wearing blue jeans, a black hoodie, and I have my locks up in a weird way this morning because I can. And I'm also very passionate about trying to get more people with disabilities who are also black into media and journalism in particular. And I'm the co-chair of the DJF, the Disability Journalism Forum.
Lovely, lovely. Such an amazing panel, and I feel like we're going to have a good time. I'm wearing a black dress with orange Talks with MS logo and some black sandals. Let's get into these questions. So we're going to go with you first, Cristina. Get the mic back down. I'm going to go slow because these questions are really wordy. What are some unique challenges faced by disabled individuals from diverse backgrounds, and how can these challenges be addressed through an intersectional approach?
That is very wordy. People always want to put people in boxes, right? And I'm kind of like, people are like, oh, you know, think outside the box. And I'm like, just blow the box up. Because actually, people like to put labels on. And so why will one protective characteristic outweigh another protective characteristic? So when I go to, at work, if I go to the BAME Network meeting, people are like, I know I'm being judged because people don't know anything about my background, right? So my sister will always, I'll say it as it is, my sister always says, we're too light to be accepted as white, but too
dark.
Yeah, you know,
Yeah.
we're too dark to be accepted as white, too white to be accepted, yeah. So the reality is, why do we need to put people in labels? And it's the same thing with disability. So right at the beginning, I didn't say it this time, but I've got physical mental health conditions. I'm somebody with a carer who actually has become a carer. So I'm collecting labels. My latest one is ADHD, which has become much more obvious with perimenopause. Why is it that we have to choose? What one weighs more? When I go to access work, is that more important than me going to another network meeting? Is my mental health more important than my physical health? And what we need to do is open conversations where people talk about their own lived experience, because we actually don't know what's happening to people.
100%. I've always said sometimes that lived experience, it doesn't outweigh medical experience. However, book smart and life smart are two different things. I'm able to relate to people based on their lived experience, whereas Mr. Doctor, Mrs. Doctor is not quite sure what I'm actually feeling right now. I digress. Next question. Yeah, we're going to go to Warren next. So Warren and Sukhjeen, and again, I'll repeat the question as many times as you need. How do you navigate the daily battles of contending with a disability while also challenging the lack of recognition and understanding in the workplace, hospitals, and social settings? What support systems, resources have been maybe helpful to you on your journey?
Thank you. I'm not convinced this is... So, trial and error, we'll get there. Okay, I think in my case, I actually seem to have almost the opposite experience that most... I have the opposite problem that lots of people in the disabled community have, in the sense that daily I have to out myself as being disabled because my first and foremost challenge is not being believed. And I think, in fact, what tends to happen is that in terms of my navigation around any kind of setting, is that I'm constantly being challenged with, really, what sort of disability? They're already on trains writing me a penalty ticket in relation to the fact that when it has a disabled rail card, for example, is that they are challenging me to produce this, and they're astonished when I do. And I'm repeatedly asked, well, what is your disability? What is your disability? Because quite often, you know, the headaches that hearing aids cause, I like to take them out when I'm sort of relaxing on my way home. I like to just be there minding my own business. So because I don't have what's a very visible disability, and because we know that ableism is so rampant within our society, I'm constantly having to out myself, constantly having to prove it. And it's interesting because on one hand, I hate this. On one hand, it's a real pain. But on the other, I admit that I'm nearly 40 years old. I've spent the vast majority of my life navigating this system in a way that denied my disability, tried to get around it, tried to minimize it as much as possible. Speech therapy that I had growing up, the lip reading classes, the fact that I can't use a telephone but I don't put myself in situations where my disability would be challenged and at the forefront. I'm constantly faced with this situation where yes, I'm having to out myself, but also I see the sharp end of ableism in the sense that lots of people will make these assumptions about who is and who isn't disabled. Lots of people will make assumptions based on how we look, based on how we sound, and I've had full-blown exchanges with people that said, listen to your voice. You've just been standing outside late, next to a speaker. You clearly don't have a hearing problem. And it's only when I produce hearing aids, effectively like a receipt. So it's a real indictment on society that we're constantly having these kind of conversations. But on the flip side, a dubious benefit of it is that because of being a white man, and this is where we get into that intersectional perspective, I have serious privilege within the margins. Within that marginalisation, I am of the privileged because the number of times, for example, that I have gone up to Joe Public where my phone has died, and the only way I can make a telephone call is through a Bluetooth connection with my hearing aids. And I've actually asked a member of the public who I've never seen before, can I use your phone to do this? Now, I've got a 100% success rate of being able to take members of the public's phones out of their hands into my own in a variety of settings, including on the edges of dark alleyways. If I wasn't a white man, would I have been able to take that phone away? Would I have been believed? Would I have had the same experience? Would I have had the same privilege? And so actually it's remarkable the amount of ableism that I also hear along the lines of, well, okay, in various settings, said, I'm constantly called high functioning. I'm constantly referred to as being a high functioning disabled person. And people think that this is a compliment. Now, as a teenager, I loved that. I thought that was wonderful. But these days, I think that in terms of navigating society, I've taken it as a little bit of a slur. Because I think, well, would I be not if I didn't sound the way I do? If I wasn't constantly mindful of my speech, would I be less acceptable? If I didn't look like this, would I be less acceptable? And those are the questions, especially having honest conversations around privilege, that I think we really need to get into on this subject.
I'm going to try this microphone. Can you all hear me? Okay. I think navigating, I was just thinking as you were talking, I wasn't really sure how I navigated it at first, but actually when I think more back to my childhood, I was growing up in a predominantly white area, and that meant I had to switch into an environment that wasn't meant for me. It meant I had to assimilate to my peers that were around me. So actually navigating when I did have chronic pain symptoms that came a lot later, it actually didn't, it kind of came as second nature because of that. And it sounds like a benefit, but it really wasn't, because it was another thing that I was then having to hide. And I was also having to hide it to a group that I never saw myself as a minority from. I never saw myself as a minority in the South Asian community. I saw myself as somebody that was part of it, and that was my identity, and it was something that was actually inclusive and safe, and it was close-knit, and it was actually from predominantly white groups. Why it's so much different to me, especially in disabled groups as well, why it's so much different to me and how racism affects me in a disability perspective, but also the South Asian community and my extended family, and having to explain how my disability affects me when it came to sensory issues, or having a bad pain day, and it's not something that you can see. And that obviously then differs if it's a visible disability, but from my perspective, that is how I navigated it, and it was difficult to accept. And it still is difficult to accept, and it goes up and down, but I think the biggest thing I really want to share today is that it's not anybody that's in similar shoes to myself. It's not the end goal. It's going to go up and down. There's going to be times where you can't fully accept that you have these multiple marginalized communities that are consistently pushing against you and making sure that you have something that you have to fight against, but you will have your good moments, and if anything, it's taught me community comes first. We come together a lot better when we are struggling in those things. So if anything, please speak out about it. If you're in the same shoes, please speak out about it. Hopefully I answered your question, but I think I forgot it too.
It was great. Just to double back on what Warren said in regards to the disability rail card. I remember going to my doctors. I've got a blue badge. I may look today like I walk okay, but you have no idea of the pain that's going on. You have no idea what it took for me to get out of bed. And I had an older white gentleman in the same doctors, in the Blue Bay, bearing in mind there was so many left, and he was so angry. He believed that that blue badge was for somebody else because you shouldn't have a blue badge because you look okay. And I thought to myself, the ignorance of it all. And I just let him talk, and I was just like, this is amazing. I'm going to show you my picture in a minute, but this is amazing. Go on, please, because you're using your energy, not mine. And I wasn't about to move. But it was just so strange that somebody would be so intense about something that doesn't concern them. Is it because I'm a young black woman and I look okay? And to be fair, what does okay look like? But because I may be able to walk in a quote unquote straight line, that I can't have a blue badge. Sir, that's not it. And that's why with Talks for a Mess, we try to advocate for also people that are tired, because you may have a voice, but you know when you're tired of speaking out constantly because you don't feel heard, it's difficult. It really is difficult, but I could go on and on and on, and I'm not going to because we still have another question. Right, so Jody and Jordan. And like I said, yeah, I'll repeat the question if you need me to. Can you share any personal experiences or examples where you have successfully confronted the intersectional challenges of your disability and workplace discrimination? And what advice do you have for others who may be facing similar struggles in their professional lives?
Okay, so I do this in a story base because basically as most people, I've probably experienced more disability discrimination than you can do. But what I put it in a fact is that usually when you're in an employment situation, fitting in means job security. That's what we do. We mask what we are, and if you have one label that's different, that's sort of navigatable. If you have two, you're pushing it. If you have a disability on top, that's it, you're out. So what I found is what I did. I used to try and fit in. I used to try and do everything I was asked to, push myself to the limit when I knew I couldn't. I'd get to a point where I was worn down, I had no more energy left, and then comes that meeting that everyone gets pulled into, the we're going to eject you now meeting. Mm-hmm. And it's in your best interest if we eject you. So I went through that quite a lot. I then became a self-employed author for a long time because basically I have paralysis as well as other things. I have neuromuscular decisions. I collect them all. So what I found was that was the best way to do it. So I got angry after a while because I became a hate crime victim. And I decided to study a law degree because I was like, if you can't beat them, fight them. So I found that through the law degree, I realized actually what my rights were. I understood the law better than them. Suddenly, confidence ignited. So, like for instance, even when I came in here earlier to talk about discrimination at the bottom door, they went to me, I'm not sure dogs are allowed in here. I was like, by law they are, bye-bye. That's just what comes from being confident. So I then got involved with things like the Association of Disabled Lawyers in order to help people, more disabled people, get into law, because by having more disabled people in law, that means there's more of us that understand employment law. There are more that can say to you, actually, no, it's not unreasonable to want to be able to get into your building and have a ramp instead of steps. It's not unreasonable to work part-time. It's not unreasonable to work from home. It's good life. If you want to build a skyscraper, you have to have scaffolding. Was it any different for me? So my advice is, first of all, talk to people in your community. There are lawyers. There are members of your community around who will go to you, no, that's wrong. Do not. Stand up for yourself. You can't always stand up for yourself at that point because you're exhausted. But there's always somebody who can. And we like fighting for you. So, we have issues. We need to take them out on somebody. So it's a legal way to do so. So my advice is that if you want then to advocate for yourself, I had a really good piece of advice from a barrister who mentored me, who said, when you're looking at it, look at it from a completely emotionless perspective. What do I want? Why should they give it to me? With evidence, law, check it out, it's on there. Legislation.gov, for example, it will give you everything you need. And then explain it to somebody as if they have complete attention deficit disorder, but I mean seriously, they're Dory as well, in a sense that they're a friend. So if you then advocate in that way, that's how barristers do it. Technically, Cristina may actually tell me something different over there. She may cut me off there. But yeah, that's how they do it. That's how advocacy goes. That's what you're trying to do. Look at TED Talks. You don't need to say much. You just need to say the important points. But talk to people. Find out what you want. Why should they give it to you? Explain it like they haven't got a clue. There you go.
Thank you. I don't have an example per se, but to try and answer the question as best possible. So I work in media. That's my sector. I'm constantly trying to, as I mentioned in the previous panel, try to get the leaders of media to try and have better representation with disabled talent. There's a lot of us out there, and I don't think that's been represented at all. But the bigger fight I have within media in terms of intersectionality is the people that run media and speak on behalf of disabled people in media, I see, aren't even white men in the main. It's actually white women. So my big issue is trying to get more black women to be at the forefront of what needs to be done, what needs to be commissioned within media on behalf of disabled talent and all talent. So I'm constantly having, I wouldn't say battles, that would be a bit dramatic, but I'm constantly having conversations with Channel 4, BBC and other leaders who want to engage in the disabled community to say, where are the black women leaders in this particular sector? And that for me is intersectionality that I'm most interested in within my area of media, because I think there's quite a lot of black men that are catered for. There needs to be more. There's enough white men for sure, but whenever I tend to speak to people who are heading up or fronting disability organizations linked with or within the media, they tend to be white women. And there's nothing wrong with that. Some of those women I work with and know very well and are doing a fantastic job. But where are the black women with disabilities that speak out on these sorts of things and lead in this industry in particular? We need more of you. So that is the area that and I think media does a really, really bad job of understanding you can be disabled and gay. You can be disabled and black. You can be disabled and working class. Seems to be you're either a woman or black or disabled, and it's one at a time. And we need to get away from that. So in my particular area, I can't talk about other sectors, that's the area of intersectionality that I'm most focused on.
Whew. Well, I've got a new job, but in my head I was thinking, do I ask another question, do I not? And I know you guys haven't really been prepped on this one, but it kind of follows on from what you was just saying, Jordan. So what do you think can be implemented to promote intersectional perspectives within disability activism, advocacy efforts, and amplifying the voices of those with multiple marginalized identities? Jordan's got his hands up.
Thank you. Sorry, I'll be quick. I think you just need to have those people in those roles.
Yeah.
I do have a little bit of sympathy for people that are leading organizations that don't fully understand the lived experience of disability, because, well, why would you? In the same way that I don't have a lived experience of being a woman.
Yeah.
I don't understand. I can sympathize to a degree, but I can't empathize. So I think you just need those people that have lived those experiences, that are talented enough and have the experience to fulfill those roles.
Yeah.
I think to answer your question, I think you just need those people that have that are disabled and black, or are male and gay, or are a woman and whatever it may be. You need those people in those roles because they're the people that understand it better than anybody else. I'm a black man with a disability. You can relate to me to a degree, but you don't know what it's like being a black man with a disability, do you? So in a particular role, I think you need those people in leading and heading up those spaces.
Yeah. Anybody else, Warren? Yeah?
So just wanted to add to that, because as the most privileged person who sits there on this panel, I think that we have to be quite honest about this. It's a point that I picked up before, being honest about our privilege. And I don't experience any white fragility whatsoever with what Jordan was saying just now and what anybody else is saying right here, because in fact we are a society that is built on white supremacy. And in fact, the work that I do now in DEI, the very foundation of that is indeed anti-racism as homage to where that work comes from. So my history, I'll share an anecdote, I think that it's just one line, but I think it will horrify you, but will give you the example because it was the single most egregious thing that I ever heard in relation to disability. And I've spent the last 15 years before I transferred over into DEI, so I'm still a qualified solicitor. I was a corporate finance lawyer working for city international firms and such. That's why I look like this. And guilty as charged. So one of the worst things that was ever said to me, and it's still yet to be beaten, is a partner at a drinks evening, actually, sort of after a few, turned round to me and he said, "Warren, in all honesty, I've got to say, if everybody looked like you, I don't think any firms would have problems hiring disabled people." And right there, you've got the racism, you've got the ableism, you've got the sexism, you've got it all. Because the fact of the matter is, white, male, Oxford, blah, 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 you take a ticket, you sit down, you better sit on the conveyor belt or be made partner. Privilege, privilege, privilege. So what's happening, of course, is in fact that unless that all of us collectively are involved in the work, which is that a marginalised community will speak up and say, well, hang on a minute, this isn't fair. But also the privileged members on the other side will turn around and say, yeah, actually, that's right, that's true, it isn't fair. And then are willing, in fact, actually, to give up a little bit of equity, to step out of line, to recognise their privilege within the marginalisation. And we can have much more honest conversations.
So yeah, my mind has just changed its mind 300 times probably. What I was going to say is it is important to have people in roles. Absolutely agree with everything people have said. But it's like in organisations, so I worked in IT, I was corporate before. So often, I'm going to use an example, you get the black person to come in and deal with the racism. Yeah. But they're not the ones that made the problem to start off with, right? So my issue is we need to find people that have lived experience, definitely. But you can't always know what that lived experience is just by looking at somebody. By looking at their CV, you wouldn't have a clue what my background is, because I still have said. The reality is we need people that have got a network and networks. They are happening on social media. Without a doubt, we are much closer. But I'll be honest with you, this is not the only community I belong to. So therefore, just like when I came out, I used to have to just go to gay clubs, right? But I lived in Camden. I was like, I'm not just going to gay clubs. So my wife, 16 years ago, I don't think she's even been to many gay clubs because it wasn't needed to in Camden. You could just go wherever you wanted to. So it is that thing, bring the community together, but actually, not just the community, society needs to change.
Yeah, I can appreciate that, Jody.
I agree. You know, and it's kind of blowing boxes apart, isn't it? Like you said. Not literally blowing anything apart, please don't. Because
hypothetically.
Then you will need lawyers. But yeah, we don't really want that. But what I find is that the more we are open about things, it takes bravery, because it's like even going through a pupillage gateway, things like going through a training contract. You have to say to people, hey, by the way, I'm not what you want me to be, but I'm even better. And it's like Disability Pride Month, we're focusing on the positivity of being disabled. Because basically, we are the best problem solvers in the world. We can create things out of nothing. We manage to not only succeed, but climb up a hill with a massive backpack on our back and no oxygen mask. And we do it all every day. So the point is, they are the type of people you want to lead. And by putting more of us, as you said, in those positions, we change everything.
I can add something else as well, because the one thing I've found really shocking recently is that this topic of intersectionality is actually quite a new topic into disability. And the reason why I found that so shocking is that we tend to always hear from the disabled community, nothing about us without us. And we're also aware as a community that anybody can become disabled at any time. So that includes a whole range of backgrounds and identities and humans. So I found it rather shocking that we haven't been leading this conversation around intersectionality, and it always comes down to the fact that the privilege, the white privilege exists there, and that needs to be addressed a lot more than we have been. And absolutely what's been said earlier, this is what struck this thought process is the fact that, yeah, we do need lived experience, but we also need to be considering where are these current thought processes. Was that me?
No, I don't think so.
Okay, I got a little worried for a moment, sorry. But where are these thought processes coming from, and actually doing the work yourselves and not always having to have those, that look like ethnic minorities come to you and having to explain what that experience is like constantly, because like I said previously, it's tiring. We have to do that on a daily basis, day in, day out, and we're tired. So, in short, please do your homework.
Yeah, no, honestly, I can relate to the tired. I really can relate. We've done a lot of people in over the last 24, 36 hours. Before the panel let us know where we can find you, just wondering if anyone in the audience has a question. We've got space for maybe 2 questions. Yeah?
Thank you so much. Hi, I'm Rebecca Edwards from Disability Rights UK, and much of my work is to work with DPOs, which is, for those who don't know it, disabled people's organisations, the organisations that we run, and we represent in the body and the trustee board and stuff like that. In much of my work to study the sector, I was made quite aware, which wasn't a surprise to me, of the marginalisation of intersectional thought in the disability space. So we are creating an intersectional DPO forum, which Sukhjeen, I hope you don't mind me saying, Chronically Brown is a member of. So firstly, really selfishly advertising to the intersectional DPOs who would like to be a part of it, please come up to me, because we're in the creation stages of it and we would love to support you. But some of the challenges that we're having in the structuring and the generation of this forum, is trying to avoid being quite additive in the way in which we discuss intersectionality in disability. So for those of you who don't know about sort of the flaws of being quite additive, it's saying I'm disabled and, so I'm disabled and queer, I'm disabled and brown, etc., etc. But it's hard to avoid it when the sort of common point is disability, but we're inviting all intersectional groups and organisations who work in disability to be part of it. So how do we allow a very holistic structure of accepting people as whole people without being additive, when the common theme is one, marginalisation, and being intersectional? I don't know if that makes much sense.
Co-design it. I want to be a scratch record, get people around at a round table, because language is such a barrier, and I don't mean different languages, I mean use of words. The word's co-production, we'll go around and around in circles. So get a round table of a very diverse group of people, in diversity in lots of different ways, and have those very open, transparent conversations, rather than there isn't going to be a magical answer. You're going to get to the best answer that's going to work for that project.
Yeah? Anybody else?
One thing I would say is probably it might help to have a lot of the different intersectional identities you can have there, if that makes sense, because there are so many of us. Because obviously I can't talk as a black man. I've never been one. And I certainly can't talk from a South Asian perspective, and I'm zooming in and out here. And I can't talk as a white man. I can't talk from those experiences. So although I might have an intersectional experience, it is my own. And that's with disability. In general, it doesn't matter if we even have the same thing. It is our own, and our experiences are different. We cope with it different. So having more psychological input, it goes a massive way. So I'm just echoing you, really.
Sorry, if I can quickly add to that as well. I think I've been invited to things like this before, and I've almost been the spokesperson for all ethnic minorities. So just to add to what you've just said brilliantly as well, is making sure it is diverse in every background that you can have access to, and if they are willing to, but don't put that one brown person or that one black person to then talk for every single community or every ethnic minority. And same goes again for white women. They can't speak for all women because disability for women can be different depending on those backgrounds as well. Sorry, I just wanted to add that quickly.
Thank you. One thing that I just wanted to say, sort of as a general point, actually, sort of when it comes to the quality of interactions, the quality of the kind of conversations where you're talking about, it's very, very hard to get them off the blocks if we're not getting our frames and our terms of reference correct at the beginning. And one thing I would say, actually, is that intersectionality, the word, the concept, is easily, to my mind, the most misused and maligned term in all of DEI, closely followed by diversity of thought, which is dreadful. And in fact, in the hands of people who don't know what it really means, and in fact the concept that Crenshaw's coined in the 80s, which of course has come from critical race theory, you can easily see intersectionality applied to a panel of white men and say, hey, we're all intersectional beings and we've got diversity of thought. When in reality, all you're talking about is the fact that people just went to different schools. There's no real diversity of thought there. So in fact, we have to make sure that the frames of the reference are correct, and that when we are throwing around terms like intersectionality, that you are constantly cognizant of how race and gender and these oppressive systems stack on top of each other, because it is about how oppressive systems stack on top of each other, so that you have people like me in these conversations that can say, yes, the disability is the disability, yes, it sucks, yes, my hearing is poor, and that is that. But equally, once I've shown my receipt, once I have proved the presence of my disability, then a figurative red carpet gets rolled out in the sense that I don't have to keep on proving. I don't have to keep on showing the receipts. And that is a different life experience entirely. And that isn't being talked about enough.
So much for being here. Before we go, I just want everyone to let us know where you can be found on social media. So me, myself, I am Talks with MS, and that is on Twitter, LinkedIn, Instagram, wherever. We are Talks with MS. We're also on C8, and we've still got some amazing freebies to give away. Cristina.
I'm always on Twitter. You'll find me on Twitter, always. There's people here that I've met for the first time, and LinkedIn. But also #LadyLXA. So during lockdown, I had a radio station, which I'm going to relaunch. So lemonade.radio. Because if the world gives you lemons, it'll give you lemonade radio. I am so cheesy.
In my case, I refuse to engage with Twitter because it's a racist hellscape. And frankly, if Mr. Musk has decided that cisgender is a slur, I was never going to get on that that platform in the first place. So no Twitter. The only social that I'm on is actually LinkedIn, which is comparatively recent. So I am on LinkedIn. I don't post enough, so I'm told repeatedly. I am a bit of a comment machine on LinkedIn. I must admit I like celebrating, amplifying content and so on. I need to post more, need to get it out there a little bit more. But yes, would absolutely love to connect with people from here. So I look forward to seeing you.
You can find most of our work on our website, so it's chronicallybrown.com, but we are also on social media at chronicallybrown.
So I have a website, jodyclaire.com, if you're going down the author route. I'm on LinkedIn. I don't post enough either. I just repost everything else because people say things far better than I do on social media. Where else can you find me? LinkedIn, website, social media. That's where I'll be.
I'm on Twitter, Instagram, just my name. I'm on LinkedIn as well. Whoa. I'm on LinkedIn as well, and my production company, which welcomes people from all the different backgrounds that aren't traditionally allowed into production. So women, black people, disabled people. We have a production company, Blackademic. Check us out. We are on LinkedIn. We are on Twitter, Instagram as well. And I also just do a lot of reposting of Arsenal and disabled issues.
Everybody's been so amazing. Thank you so much for listening, and have a great afternoon.